Okay, Prashant, I think we are live now. Just a second.
Are we? Okay, all right.
Yes, we are live. Okay. First of all, thank you very much for joining. It has been a most waited session. We've been trying to make it
Thank you so
make
much
it
for
for
having me.
long.
Thank you.
Yes, it's my pleasure and honor to have you as a guest. It's a tiny little program organized
Right.
on my behalf so that we can help at the new aspirants. We can say CISSP aspirants. As my
Mm-hmm.
personal feeling is in this sector, there are less amount of people, actually from my country at least. Uh, so
Right.
I want to encourage more and more people so that they come into this, at least they try to come into this profession, or because there
Right.
is a lot of fears and myths about this exam. Even before I attempt to do this exam, a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
were inside the mind, or inside everyone was saying that it's one of the toughest exam. We are not able to crack this exam. These sort of things were there. But
Right.
when I actually met with Luke and subscribed in his page, and then later on
Yes.
was part of the Telegram group, and
Right.
things were for me from that point of view, things started to become more clear. Before that, it was more foggy, and now later on, after subscribing those groups, come under the mentorship of Luke, and there are many other people. I have gone through your book, and thanks for writing such a wonderful thing, because it is quite
Thank
really
you.
a nice thing. So I'm talking more about me, but let's go back to
No,
you.
that's perfectly fine. Thank you so much.
And so all the viewers who just joined with me, all of you, I have few who are already in CSSP or all trying to be CSSP. They all knew about Prashant. Prashant is one of the protagonist character right now in security industrial CSSP profession, I must say. Uh, Thanks, Prashant, for joining with us again. Let's start today's program. We try to cover two important things. In the past sessions, we almost discussed about how the mentors or the teachers prepared for the exam, and we talk about different aspects. But in this particular session, I requested Prashant, we talked about too much theories. Now it is better do some application, how to figure out
Right.
answer. In CSSP
Okay.
there is no dump, so anybody who is looking for that, forget about this. That there are
Sure.
techniques, how the masters like Prashant, how they help other, or how the people actually in that 3 hours, how they figure out the 100 to 150 questions. This is the
Right.
technique we must discuss about. It is not discussed in many forums, and very grateful to Prashant. At least we are trying to make it happen in short time. If we get enough opportunity later, we can also may join later. Okay, Prashant,
Sure.
before going
Absolutely.
into the main program, first tell me, from a beginner to a security architect, how was your journey? It is the
Okay.
I think many people asking me about question when they wanted to shift from beginning to another career, or from other domain to security. They always ask what is the gateway,
Right.
what's the path. So we want to hear from
Right.
you.
Sure. So my journey actually with security began to the very early days of my colleges. So when I was in college, I was into second in year of my engineering, and I was introduced to security through various aspects of through the phishing attempts that were going around. Like the people used to experience some kind of a phishing attacks, and that's how I got introduced to the security at my very early phase. And it is approximately 2006 or 7, around 2006 or 7, during my college days. Now that is when I was introduced, and it actually I had a great inclination towards this particular subject. And I had a great mentor at that time, and he helped me around with a lot of books, a lot of materials, and he asked me that if you want to learn more about it, you simply go ahead and start looking for various articles over the internet, because internet is a great resource for you to learn.
Right.
Now that was where I learned about the security. Now it became a challenge, because at that point of time in India, around 2009 when I graduated, security still was a kind of a bubbling industry, and it didn't had a much of maturity. A lot of organizations didn't had a majority of the presence in security. So I happened to land in my first job, and it was actually into the breakthrough of the security. I happened to be a part of the security team, and through that, and I looked into various, and from there, I believe it is, I worked into various domains. Like I started from identity and access management, then I moved into security operations center, working for various kind of incident responses that we used to receive. Then moving from security operations center to auditing and compliance, and then from there to uh, application security, and then to security architecture. So throughout my journey, I mean, it's been 11 years now. I have been into completely security of my professional experience now. Now, for the people I have seen, or I have even worked with them professionally, who were not at a part of security at their early stages. They were part of either some kind of a development team, some kind of a networking team, or maybe any kind of different profiles, because a lot of organizations are still adapting. I mean, they do have a program of security at their end, but maturity is the point of discussion that we might not want to take it here. So a lot of professionals that I worked with them professionally, so they were a part of separate teams, but yes, they had an interest, and they wanted to do something, because it is all about security. Something you cannot make anyone learn. It is something you actually get, you automatically become passionate about it. You automatically want to know more about it, and understand about it. So even after spending approximately 10 years into some other profile, they managed to land themselves into a security industry, and they are doing really great. So it is all about how easy it is for you. It is definitely not easy for any individual that they have spent a decade time in learning something different, and now it is going to be a complete switch from one industry to another. So it is going to be challenging initially, but it all depends on a person to person, how truly and desperately they want to excel in this particular field. And the more you want to invest yourself, this industry has a lot to offer. So
Okay.
I have worked with them personally. So I have seen them that they've spent 10 years into the career. So it is never too late. I mean, the short answer is it is never too late. You can start at any point of time. If it is, because it is indeed very intriguing domain, anyone and everybody wants to spend their or want to have a flavor of it. So definitely, it's this industry has a lot to offer. It is just one has to become a person who truly wants to invest themselves, because this industry demands uh, a great up to date knowledge. One has to keep on updating themselves onto the various kind of knowledge that they can.
Okay, that's good. Most of the time, when a person like me, I've been working in service provider industry or the core routing, switching, these sort of stuffs.
Right,
Uh,
right,
for me, I thought that okay, let me just in the same track I've been working for even over a decade. So let's try out something new. As security is
right.
booming, the market is booming. So
Absolutely.
let's take a chance to if I get opportunity later on. So let's make a path for at least. So there are many
Right,
guys like me, or maybe less have less experiences than me, or must some of them don't have that much IT related experiences. They may be mechanical engineer, they may electrical engineer, that sort of the expertise they have, but they're trying to switch into security. They're trying to
right.
take security as a career. So what should
Yep.
be the recommended entry point for those people?
Okay. And indeed, this is a kind of a question that normally people would have, because they have spent some duration into doing something else. Now they want to start from something entirely new. Oh, and I agree, it is a kind of a lot attractive and a fascinating domain for a lot of people. So my personal recommendation would be to get yourself familiar with the domain. Not complete it, one doesn't have to be an expert on it. Like, no one is an expert. I mean, even we are working here for more than a decade now. Well, no one is an expert, but at least one can start learning about the basic concepts. I mean, I'm going to take a very basic example, like talking about cryptography, right? No,
Right.
we do not expect anyone to understand in depth that how does the elliptical curve cryptography works, how do you actually identify the key on that, right? Or what is the kind of a mathematical or algebraic expression that follows behind identifying the key in the ECC cryptography. No, but just at least we would expect that what exactly cryptography is on a high level, why do we need it, right? Why, and what exactly is the purpose? To convert the plain text to the ciphertext, and it is just to protect the confidentiality. So these are the basic understanding one should have, and once they have it, they know at least the few bits and pieces which are scattered right now, and now they can start picking up those pieces and start putting it into the correct puzzle, and that's how they can get in there. So it is very important to start learning from the very basic concepts, understand at a high level what exactly access control is, what exactly risk management is. Ask yourself questions. There are plenty of resources available over the internet, and internet has a vast resource for everything available. And and in fact, there world is filled with people who are there to help you out. It is just you need to reach out to them.
Right.
And we just try and hesitate. I mean, that's how my interaction started with Luke. And over the page, when I was preparing for my own CISSP in 2017, almost more than 3 years back now. So I was initially hesitant in reaching out to him personally, but when I spoke to him for a very first time over the messenger chat, and believe me, he is one of the most humble person I've ever seen, ever met, I've ever spoken to. So it is, the world is filled with a lot of good people. You just need to reach out to them. In case you don't see a response from one person, you probably might want to reach out to another person. That is okay. Or otherwise, first of all, it is important that we try to look out for our answers ourselves. And just in case we do not find any answers, we might want to reach out to the right people.
How much certifications play a role in a person's career, especially
Uh,
security certifications?
right. So, okay. And I'm going to give you a two-way response to this. One is a very general approach or a general response to this that happens normally, and one from the response from my country specific. And even it would be true for your country as well,
Right, right,
because
exactly.
we in India and are like Bangladesh, Pakistan, these countries are kind of have a competitive market, right? People are asking you everything, right?
Yes, right.
So the short answer for this is the certification is just going to get you a documentation that you have gone through the entire process of learning. The learning process has been completed. Well, it is definitely going to give you an edge over the rest of the people who have applied for any kind of job. So in case, let's say there's a position open for any organization, and there are 100 applicants for that role. And out of 100 applicants, there are 10 people who are CISSP certified. Now, if I, as a recruiter, if I have to finalize those 100 resumes or CVs, I will first try to interview those 10 people who have CSSP certification, right?
Right,
Well,
right,
in order to get them a job, it definitely requires a skill set. So,
right,
to my understanding, CISSP or any other certification will help you in getting your resumes screened. It is definitely going to give you an edge over rest of the applicants. But yes, To crack that interview, definitely you need to have a set of experience, set of knowledge. That is what you it is going to land you on the job, not just the certification alone. But yes, uh, a certification definitely plays a great and important role there.
Right. Uh, this question from some like fresh graduates, freshers, when they come out
Hmm.
from in the to the come into the industry, like
Hmm.
you, I think you have been in your throughout your career, you have recruited lots of time the freshers, also the middle experienced guy. So what
Right.
actually look from a fresher? If suppose someone is willing to work under you in your team, in your security domain, what is your expectation from a fresh guy? Or a person have 1 to 2 experience, something like that.
Okay. So, I mean, I did take interviews for a lot of fresher guys, and for them, I just see the right mindset and the right attitude. Because learning is something, and believe me, I'm kind of a very soft person in that perspective on hiring anyone, and it is one has to be uh, have a right attitude and a right mindset. Learning is something that in case if the person possess these two skills, soft skills, attitude and a mindset, learning technical abilities can automatically happen. If a person has these kind of like a right attitude or right mindset, we can, because a fresher's mind is something completely blank. It is like a blank paper, you can call it like that way, and they don't have any kind of knowledge as of now. It is already there what they have been taught in their college or what they have been doing it out of their passion. So they do not have any kind of an experience or a flavor of how does the corporate culture looks like. So if someone is with the right attitude and right mindset, we can pick them up and we can mold them as per your need. So they are open to learn anything that you ask them to learn, and they are open to learn or get help you in several ways. And for someone who is like 1 to 2 years of freshers who have been just landed into the industry, they're still learning. So we have to treat them nicely. It is something, they have a bright future, and until unless we show them the right path, it is because a person who is going to bring those guys into our organizations or to their respective organizations, it is up to them. If you want them to stick to your place, it is very important that you nurture them properly, you treat them well, you give them opportunities and trust them with those opportunities. It is very important. Otherwise, if you're not going to trust them, if you're not going to hand over the opportunities, they might feel a kind of it's monotonous. After some extent, it might be monotonous for them. So let them explore and give them opportunities and let them try their best.
Okay, that's great for you. My next question is related to actually what is security. Like somebody thinks that installing license antivirus, update it, maybe this is the concept of security. Somebody says that we have the firewall and it blocks the ports. Somebody says that we have the spam filter, that it blocks all the unwanted emails. Then we are safe. Somebody has the we are doing the vulnerability assessment. We are like servers, so we're doing it, and we are regularly trying to fix the bugs and this and that. So what is actually security? And because when a person tries to convince the management in terms of because security is a cost, somebody, most
Right.
of the people thinks that it is a costly endeavor, and we don't need
True.
that probably that much.
Right.
So if you are a boss, how do you manage your CXOs that we need this to secure
Right.
your organization? Because I personally feel that many people fail to convey this message
Right.
because not all of them are CISSPs, but they're working in the security or they're try to manage their whole network, try to secure the network. So the business enabling concept to the take the technological funda, convert into the business. I think most of the people not able to match these two things. That's why the from management when they bring this to their table, I think most of the time it's rejected. Probably this is the culture. Maybe in here also it is improving, but it's not like that. It is a it is we are doing it in advance. It is something
Right.
like that. We had something happen until and unless company hit by the ransomwares or some sort of
Absolutely.
attacks, they kept
Right.
silent. And suddenly
Yeah.
they start to feel that yes, we have not done this and that. Why you have not done that? They make some changes. They reshuffling the employees. They bring some experts. But actually, what them is probably the lacking information gap between the CXO and the security expert or security in charge. So how do you manage? How do you propose a new concept or about a product or something? How do you deal with your vendors? How do you deal that this sort of thing in advance? You identify or try to identify that my network is not secure in these terms. New sort of threats are coming. So how actually as architect, I want to know about you. What is your daily actually how you make the forecast or how do you actually identify the risks and how you mitigate consulting with your management?
Sure. So, and somewhere while you were explaining the question, you yourself answered the question where you mentioned that until unless the organization experience a breach, they won't ever
Right,
realize, right? And it is
right,
true. And you would see the difference from what exactly it was happening approximately a decade back when we didn't had enough of the security budget,
right,
right? But now we have 8 to 10% of the IT budget is lended to the security, which is actually a great sign. And a lot of organization does it even more. And this is where we are showing some kind of a realization to the CXOs and to the senior management that, hey, boss, this is important for you. And the reason I'm asking is because eventually it is going to save us a lot of money, because considering a lot of regulatory penalties are being invoked. GDPR talks about 4% of your total revenue, right, in case there is a compromise or there is a breach of the PII data. So those kind of things, we need to propose it to the management. And as a role of someone who is responsible of heading a security in the organization, like a CISO or a CIO, it is very important. A lot of times the question is being asked, what is the first thing that you do after becoming a CISO? Right? A lot of times these kind of questions are put down. A lot of people say that I'm gonna identify the current state of the organization and uh, how exactly are the current risk, and we're gonna figure out how do we mitigate it, right? And however, my opinion is that first of all, go ahead and build a relationship with your management. It is very important. A great relationship and a healthy relationship with your management is going to help you in getting those budgets approved, right? Go and talk to your CFO because he's the guy for you. So it is very important to build a healthy relationship with your senior management. And once that relationship is built, once you have the trust built up, right, it is very important that now you start proposing that right now the picture of our organization, it looks bad, right? But if you actually try to invest this amount of money, it is going to save us a lot of money in future, and even a lot of potential risk for the future. So that is where I would suggest that first of all, build up the relationship with your senior management, and then start. Once the relationship is built, then we can go ahead and start proposing whatever the ideas we have in order to uh, secure the entire security posture of uh, our organization.
okay. That's short information for the audiences who are watching it live or later, because just you are bagging certifications or you have your knowledge is not enough to thrive in the company. You need to learn. You need to build relationship with your
Absolutely,
seniors and our colleagues. Without this, it is really difficult to survive.
it is
Good.
difficult. Yes.
Right. Uh, we have already we in the middle portion of the program. Let me check whether we have received any questions from our audience. Okay, Prashant, one I think about security. One most talked about item is security is both. sometimes I felt this boredom also in my early career. So you have been in this industry around 1 decade. How did you survive with these boredoms, and how you rescued yourself and constantly pamper your passion for security?
Okay, so honestly, for me, I haven't got a chance ever in my career that I have one day I could say that, okay, this is not something I was wanting to do it. Well, it has always kept me on my toes because while I was a part of my one of the roles in my previous experiences of the Security Operations Center, that was a kind of a havoc. I mean, you make sure that you are always up to your mark to ensure that your organization is protected, right? And even, I mean, doesn't matter what kind of role you take, even in your auditing and compliance, it is a kind of a proactive measure that you have to take to ensure that every kind of controls are in place and they're intact. There aren't any kind of compromises within your control systems. You keep on continuously auditing it. And even in the architecture responsibilities, we so a responsibility that for me is to make sure that we oversee the entire design and implementation for in any kind of applications or at an infrastructure level. So we just, I mean, before anything goes to the production, anything goes live, or even anything goes to our customers, anything, we need to make sure that it is absolutely secure. So every single day, I believe it has been a new challenge. I don't even remember a single day that it has went and I haven't seen something that has been redundant in my career. So it's gonna be a new challenge every day, or not every day probably, but yes, every new assignment is different for me. And apart from that, one thing I've always ensured that I need to keep myself updated from a technology perspective. I need to keep myself updated from everything that is happening around into the cyberspace, into the security space. Anyone who should be talking about it, at least I should know a little bit of an idea about it. It doesn't have to be complete detailings about it. I don't have to learn how to launch a ransomware attack, right? I just have to understand what exactly ransomware is and how do I actually protect myself from those kind of, right, just to make sure that I do not click on any suspected links. So so that I can educate not only to my colleagues but also to my friends and family members, because eventually this is something is inevitable and it could happen to anyone. It doesn't have to be so compromises will it's not something that it can only happen to IT industry guys, right?
Yeah.
uh, the more common people are around us who might not be that much aware, they are the most lucrative victims or the targets for these attackers. So we
Yeah.
need to make sure that we take up these knowledge and try and educate them, try and find out 10 to 15 minutes of every day and try to explain it, even to like my parents show me whenever they receive any kind of any kind of link over the WhatsApp or any kind of email. They ask me that, hey, do you think it is okay to click? And I mean, don't click it. Doesn't matter if it is from one of your relatives. Don't click it.
Right. So this sort of training are really crucial, and all the major companies
Absolutely.
they are regularly providing these sort of things,
Right.
training, so that people they can educate all the employees across all platform. Prashant, I have two questions, two
Sure.
hard questions for you.
Okay.
One is one of my from colleagues, I can say. How to identify potential security risks in advance. He wants to know about some technical processes that you follow to identify risks.
So, in order to make sure that we proactively identify some kind of risk in your infrastructure, make sure that we have all the first of all, we need to have a security policy in place, and that policy should exclusively mention about having a risk management program. Now,
Okay.
risk management program is going to continuously assess. It is not something a one-time activity. It is a recurrent activity. It is a never-ending process. So once you have identified all the assets, try and evaluate all the potential vulnerabilities or potential threats through the processes like your threat model, right? Threat model is something I am not very sure a lot of organizations are still doing it or not. So you might want to have a process like threat model, which is going to help you in identifying any kind of potential threats, and then prioritize them accordingly to in order to remediate those. So having a continuous risk management or risk assessment process is the one of the key essential uh, component or equipment that you might want to include in as a part of our security policy, right? And with those, once we have that risk in place, or it doesn't matter, it has to be quantified. Even if we suspect that this could actually lead us to some kind of potential compromise, we can try and figure out, at least we can try to be safe proactively rather than being sorry later. So this is what I would recommend, to have a strong risk management process. And risk management is just a very generic term. It should include a lot of other things, like even your threat intelligence. It is one thing, a kind of a buzzword nowadays, threat hunting or threat intelligence. So people have a dedicated team out there. They actually try to identify all the potential kind of threats into the wild, and how those threats can be mapped into our current infrastructure. So all these processes needs to be equipped so that we should have a proactive measures of risk management and risk identification process, so that we are actually keeping ourselves at an extra edge.
Okay, that's good. The next question is, many companies nowadays are planning to move their systems to cloud.
Right.
And when I saw recently IC2 has launched one webinar also saying that moving to cloud or moving towards cloud. So when talking about cloud, as it is out of your territory, there are some experts who says that what if anything happens in cloud, then what will happen with your data, or what will happen with your information assets. So you are also CCSP, and
Yeah.
so what is the actual context? Are we safe to move our data to cloud,
Well,
especially financial data like this?
the answer is yes and no. Yes, if we perform our due diligence properly in identifying the right service provider for ourselves, if we have performed our due diligence, then yes, we are safe. If we haven't done, then no. See, identifying a cloud service provider, a right cloud service provider, is very crucial, because we are going to trust our data with them. We are going to outsource everything. The data is not going to be in our control. It is going to beyond our territory, beyond our control. We can just simply have access to it and probably manage the accesses. Rest nothing. If we are going to subscribe for software as a services per se. So the first thing is to make sure that we perform a due diligence, a great due diligence in identifying the service provider. Now, make sure that we review the third-party audit certifications like SOC reports or ISO certifications or PCI certifications. And if we are actually procuring or subscribing for software as a services, let's ensure that we also look into the third-party penetration testing reports for those solutions. It is very important. And if we see that there are any kind of known vulnerabilities to those solutions, get these things to the management of the business, that hey, I don't think it is safe out there. If we are going to go with this service provider, it's going to be doomed, or it's going to be chaos. Or we even have industry practices, a kind of a SaaS, the questionnaires that we get from the cloud. So CSA, Cloud Service Alliance, Cloud Security Alliance, have its own set of security questionnaire. Then we have industry standard Cake. Yeah, so these are the few questionnaires that you might want to in build, and it's not something that one has to replicate entirely. We can just simply tailor it down as per our own requirement and create a kind of a short security questionnaire for ourselves, that we can send it out to the service provider, and then they can fill in the response. just by, I mean, asking few basic questions like what kind of authentication you have. Do you support multi-factor authentication or not? Do you support in SSO, or do you support what kind of encryption you use? And who would own the key management process? So these are the few questions. I mean, you can ask plenty of them, or at least you can use exact the CSA or CCM, the cloud control matrix that they offer. We can go ahead and use it and send it across to the service provider. So if we are performing a better due diligence, then yes, we are secure. But if we are not, then probably no, because the security is just one aspect. There is another aspect of cloud security that is related to the privacy. It is in absolutely important because cloud is just the third party data center, and our data is going to be a part of someone else's data center. So stringent regulatory regulations like your GDPR, or there are various countries which has a data localization law, just like Russia has a data localization law, where you're not supposed to, it is important to have and maintain a backup of the data into their own territory. You cannot take it out. So someone who is using any kind of services whose data center is present only and only in the United States, probably that then it's a bad idea. How do we do it? So there are a few legal complications and legal liabilities as well that we have to consider. So have these all the questions answered to yourself, and if you have all the answers to these questions and they all are positive, then yeah, we can definitely go ahead with it. Because cloud is something, it is going to shift the entire focus from your uh, like capital expenditure to operating expenditure. So it is very important that we actually focus on our core business objectives. I'm just giving an example of someone who is a restaurant chain. They don't have to worry about the softwares or the hardwares, right? They just have to make sure that they create good food, make good food and serve it to the customers. They don't have to worry about the softwares or the hardware. They can simply transfer this ownership to some service provider, and then they can simply focus it. So it is going to enable the complete focus to your core objective of the business. So yes, it is a good thing, but we need to make sure that we do it diligently.
Okay. Yes. That's good. I think the questions are answered. Many people are in hesitation whether we can move to cloud or not with all the privacy and protection that we are currently enjoying for on-premise solution.
Right.
Another question, kind of these sort of things we regularly face, like how to select a firewall product. Like security is still, firewall is under the umbrella of security. So when
Right.
you are selecting a firewall or you are even trying to deploy a firewall or these sort of things, how you select a product? Just looking at the vendor, or how actually, how, what is your mindset when you select
So
a product?
right. So there are few market leaders in terms of the firewall, I would say manufacturers or the vendors. Your Palo Alto is there, your Cisco is there, your Juniper is there, and plenty others, right? And these firewalls comes with unified threat management, or the next generation firewall, like we say, which has a capability of not only restricting or allowing the IPs, but they do much more beyond that. IDS, IPS, antivirus, VPN anchoring, VPN concentrators, many other features are offered there. So we can simply go ahead and decide first of all that what exactly suits our environment. So it is important that we perform a cost benefit analysis first, that how much money that we are going to invest in buying a firewall, is the asset worth protecting it? So you must have heard about that, like the way we do the cost benefit analysis. An asset which is just worth of $100,000, and the annual cost of my firewall is going to be $150,000. I don't see a point we need to spend that much of money to protect something which is not that valuable to us. Okay, so it is very important that we perform a cost benefit analysis, and then we have the market leaders and simply go ahead. Or one of the my personal opinion is look for your own market competitors, right? And so someone who is into the banking industry, there are plenty of banking or the financial institutes which are available there, and you might want to just take some kind of an opinion from them, that what kind of technology that they are using. It is completely okay, right? So deciding first of all what best suits for your organization, then there are the and a lot of organization relies on the that quadrant, that there's an organization that presents you with the complete analysis of the various tools and the market products. And if you're in that one of those top four quadrants, so it provides you with a complete understanding with that. So one can also refer to the that magical quadrant as well to see if what are the top four or top five vendors available. So we can go ahead and choose that.
Okay, that's next question is this probably the last question, as we are already in the middle part of this program and we have many other things to cover tonight.
Sure.
Uh, what is the recommended baseline security for a organization? That
All right.
not the huge scale, just mid scale.
Okay. So baseline security would be something to make sure that first of all we define what exactly is a high level security policy for us. So creating a security policy is indeed very important, because that policy is going to determine what kind of various controls or the security would be needed to us, right?
True.
So having a security policy is very important. Then it is important that to evaluate or to identify what all are the various assets which are available to us, and what and differentiating what is critical to the organization and what is not so critical. So it is very important to distinguish between what is critical to us and what is not so critical, right? And then ensuring that whatever the critical systems are, we try to harden it. Now hardening those critical systems is to make sure that keeping those systems up to date, disabling any kind of unused or unwanted features or any kind of services, ensuring that we use all the kind of security stacks, like your IDS, IPS, firewalls, and everything, making sure that whatever the components which are used within that critical systems, in order to support it, we keep it up to date. And having all the change management and process management and these kind of things should be in place. One of the most important thing is to make sure that we train and make our employees or users aware, because it is the users with whom we are trusting the entire data, because we are going to provide all the necessary accesses to the users. So we have to trust with the access to them, right? So it is very important that we make them aware. Now there was one of the survey that was conducted with by one of the organizations, and they mentioned that 85% of the successful breaches happens with a simple phishing attack. And it is not that phishing attack cannot be prevented, but how exactly the phishing attempts or phishing attacks are successful when any user, not necessarily that they do it deliberately, but by mistake, by negligence, they end up clicking something which was not meant to be clicked. And that's how most of the compromises happen. So it is very important to make them aware. So choosing all the necessary assets, and then accordingly we can choose appropriate controls. Now talking about the baseline is to make sure that there are various so we have computer center for internet security, or CIS benchmarking, that we do. So first of all, we would decide all the various kind of components that we have. Like if we are using Microsoft Server 2016 or 2019, we can simply go ahead and look for all the available security controls for servers which are based on there. Or we are using any kind of Active Directory, or we are using any kind of things. So they actually present you with the various security baselines available there. So we can use those, and probably we might want to scope it, tailor it down as per our need, and that's how we can proceed.
Okay, lots of discussion. Thanks, Prashant. Uh,
Thank you.
we are in the last part of this program. So I am sharing. I have collected few questions for you to test your
Okay.
knowledge.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So those are pretty easier question for you, I believe. But our job is to make the audiences to understand about the exam pattern in CISSP, how
Okay.
difficult or how easy the questions are, how the process of elimination techniques. For each question, you hardly get 2.5 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
So
Awesome. Sure.
within 3 minutes, we need to figure it out. We have around 10 to 11 questions.
Sure.
So I am sharing my screen.
Okay.
Are you able to see the screen?
Just a moment. I think I need to make it a little large. Yes. Yes, I can see the screen. Yep.
Okay.
All
So
right.
here comes the first question that I think you can. I'm not sure whether you can see it fully.
Yep. Yep. I can see it. I can see it. It's
Okay,
pretty
okay,
clear.
that's good.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure. So the first
So
question is, yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
yes,
Please go
yes,
ahead.
yes. AD has been tasked to identify a service that will provide a low latency, high performance, and high availability way to host content for his employer. I think most all the employers nowadays asking for this without paying much.
Right.
What type of solution should he seek out to ensure that his employers, customers around the world can access their content quickly and easily and reliably? So we
Right.
have four questions, a hot site as for answers, a hot site, a CDN, redundant servers, a P2P CDN. So
Right.
for tricky available options are available. What is your take on it? This.
Sure. So if I see the question properly and the context of the question, and this is something we have to, one thumb rule that I always make sure that I tell everyone who is going to take up the CISSP exam, that please make it a habit of reading the question twice. Doesn't matter what happens, even if it in the first glance you know what would be the answer or the possible answers, make sure that you read it twice. Having this habit of reading the twice, it is going to identify small keywords which is going to help you in narrowing down your search options. So here the context is about, so Ed has been asked to identify the service which provides a low latency and high performance, so something which is related to the performance, right?
Right, right,
So just even by line by line, if I start eliminating the
right,
answers here, so a hot site is definitely an high availability is there, right?
right,
uh, Low latency and high performance is always there to the, but the question talks about way to host the content for his employer. Okay, so what type of solution should he seek, so out to ensure that his employers customers around the world can access the content quickly, easily, and reliably, right? So
right,
this
right,
is actually a kind of a definition about your content delivery network, because a
right,
hot site is something, it is a type of your secondary site which we pick up for disaster recovery and which is
right,
quickly available in like within few hours. You can pick up your hot site by bringing your people just in case your primary site is affected from a disaster, right? A
right,
redundant server is definitely a great choice. However, it is not going to offer the low latency and high performance. Redundant servers are just going to offer you the high availability. It is not going to offer you the low latency and high performance, right? A
right,
peer-to-peer content delivery network, it is not something globally accessible. So a simple content delivery network is something which is your, the content is geographically dispersed to the multiple locations, and the people across multiple locations, they can simply access to the nearest site or the nearest server and they can start accessing the content. So to my assumption, option B should be the correct choice here.
Right. Thanks. So all the people who thought that CSSP is a very tough exam, I think you can identify whether it is
Right.
tough or not. So, so here our second question. We already started talking about attacks. The
Right.
question starts with the evil twin attack that broadcasts a legitimate SSID for an authorized network is an example of what category of threat. Some people who don't have an idea about evil twin attack is like having the same Wi-Fi name. You at your
Right.
home, you have a Wi-Fi name. Suppose my Wi-Fi name, Wi-Fi SSID contains my name or my son's name. Same someone in my neighbor starts broadcasting with the same SSID. So
Right.
this sort of attack. So what
Right.
is the reason could be for this? The options are spoofing, information disclosure, repudiation, and tampering.
Right. So you actually explained really well about the example, what exactly the evil twin attack looks like. So it is where someone who is trying to impersonate or try to pretend that this is something a legitimate connection for you, right?
Right,
So
right,
this
right.
is a clear definition for your spoofing. And
Spoofing.
for everyone who's watching right now, so the options that are given, spoofing, information disclosure, repudiation, and tampering, these all are the part of your threat model, most commonly used threat model, which is STRIDE. So spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and escalation of privilege. So spoofing is one of the parameters that we identify. So spoofing is a technique when an attacker tries to impersonate or steal someone else's identity in order to launch in or pretend to be someone else. So you must have heard about email ID spoofing or IP address spoofing or ARP spoofing, DNS spoofing. Various kind of spoofing attack happens. Even the phone number spoofing that happens. So where actually attacker tries to pretend to be someone else. So spoofing is a right choice here.
So it's our third question. Staff in an IT department who are delegated responsibility for day-to-day tasks hold what data role? It's like somebody like me or somebody like other persons who might be watching who is in IT department doing the server related or PC related works. So what is there is few roles are defined here: business owner, user, data processor, and custodian.
Right.
So
And yeah, so I think this question looks closer to the domain two, which is our asset security, where we have defined the roles and
right,
responsibilities from the data, right? So
right,
here the question is asking about that staff in an IT department who are delegated the responsibility for day-to-day task, right?
right,
So
right.
it a person who creates the data, it is called as data owner. Now
Hmm.
most of the times your data owner is also are someone a part of your senior management, or who knows, who actually understands the uh, magnitude of the in case the data is compromised. So a data owner's responsibility is to make sure that we classify the data, because based on the data classification we would be able to determine what kind of security controls we would be implementing, right? However, a data owner, most of the times they try to delegate their day-to-day activity like housekeeping activity, maintenance activity, backing up the data, making sure that the data is properly protected. The data owner delegates these tasks to a role or a person who is also called as data custodian. So to my understanding, option D should be the right choice here. Rest business owner is someone who is going to be a part of the business or who is heading the business division. Like your someone who is heading the sales department would be the sales business owner. A user who is just an end user. Data processor, option C, data processor is a role which is defined in our GDPR. So which processes the data on behalf of the data controllers. So while attempting any kind of question for CISSP, it is not only important that we actually identify which is the right answer, but also we should be able to explain which option is the why the wrong choices are wrong. Okay, so it is very important for any one who's planning for the CISSP exam. It is absolutely important that you should be able to explain the why you haven't chosen the rest of the three choices, and what is the rationale behind choosing the right choice.
Prashant,
uh, I think I lost you, Mithun.
hello, Prashant.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, okay. So let me share the screen again.
Sure,
I,
no problem.
I faced some quality issues in my network.
No problem, no problem at all.
Okay, I think we are live again. So Prashant, this is our next question. This is very much technical about who does not have any idea. So I would expect you to describe it more.
Sure.
Matthew is a security administrator for a consulting firm and must enforce access controls that restricts users access based upon their previous activity. There is an example like once a consultant access data belonging to a consultant client that can no longer access data belonging to any of Acme's competitors. Which security model best fits the Matthew's need?
Right. So this is actually a topic from domain 3, security architecture and engineering, security engineering technically. So this actually talks about the various security models that it explains. So the security models on a high level, it is based on the state machine information flow or non-interference model. And these information is actually important for in order to create a security model that is going to provide or ensure you protect the confidentiality, integrity, or availability for the systems, right? So this particular context in the question is all about that Matthew, who is a security administrator in the consulting firm, and is trying to design a control in for a system where a person who already has access to a particular customer or any entity, they shouldn't be accessing any one of the competitors data. Okay, so out of the four options which are listed down here, a Clark Wilson, which is an integrity model which enforces the concept of separation of duty. So separation of duty is something where any critical task should not be completed end to end by a single person. All right, so that is not something relevant to the context. Biba model, again, it is an integrity model which is ensuring that it has two different rules, that it ensures that no read down and no write up to maintain the integrity in the system. All right, and here we go again. I think I lost you one more time, and I'm not very sure what was the third option. I'm assuming it would be Bella Padula. And Bella Padula is the concept which is actually which focuses on confidentiality of the data. So based on the entire context of the question, what looked best for me was option D, that is Brewer Nash. Brewer Nash model is actually, it creates, all right, yep, I can see the screen again. Yes. So the Brewer Nash model is something which is a kind of a metaphor, which uses a metaphor of the Chinese wall. So it ensures that someone who has access to or an organization's data, they shouldn't be able to access any of their competitors' data. So it maintains, or it protects the conflict of interest. So to my understanding, option D should be the right choice. All right. So I can see question number 5 here. Helen is a software engineer and is developing code that she would like to restrict running within an isolated sandbox for security purpose. So what software development technique that Helen is using? All right. So in the question, the context is Helen is a security engineer and is developing a code that she wants to ensure that access is restricted to the within an isolated sandbox. So sandbox is your isolated area which is used to run any kind of, or any to test any code or for the training purposes. Okay, so technically what we're trying to achieve, some kind of isolation. Okay, let's look at the options first. Option A talks about the bound. Now bound is something which restricts any kind of memory or a process by ensuring that it have some kind of a memory boundaries. Okay, so any process that needs to be confined, it has to be bounded using some kind of memory. So any kind of a particular memory or a process should not be accessing anything beyond its memory area. So bounds are technically related to your memory. Input validation, it is one of the countermeasures for your web application security vulnerabilities like your cross-site scripting or SQL injection. So I don't think it is relevant from the context. Confinement. Well, confinement is something which seems to be the best choice here, because confinement is something, what exactly we are doing? We are trying to confine the area. So confined means we are trying to restrict a particular area so that it can be isolated. So isolation happens when a particular process is confined through the memory bound. So then we call it as an isolation. So I think confinement is a best choice here out of all the available options. TCP again, it is your trusted computing base, which is the portion of your computer which is protected using components like your reference monitor or security perimeter. We just say TCP where a particular part of a computer system which is trusted, which cannot be exploited. All right, let's see what's next. Okay, so the question is, Susan would like to configure IPsec in a manner that provides confidentiality for the content of packet. What component of IPsec provides this capability? So IPsec is a default framework, or a standard framework for any kind of a VPN configuration. So it is your internet protocol security, and IPsec works at layer 3 of the OSI model. So this is something would be interesting for people who are the network junkies, just like yourself. So it is going to be kind of an interesting topic, and it is a part of the domain 4 of CSSP, communications and network security. So IPsec is generally uses it, or it is built up of two different components: authentication header and encapsulated security payload. Now, authentication header provides your authentication integrity and your non-repudiation, right? Encapsulated security payload. So the word encapsulation itself means that a particular data or a payload is is round, or it is wrapped up inside something. So encapsulated security payload offers your confidentiality, integrity, and partial authentication. Rest your IKE and your ISA, KMP, these are the key exchange and key management protocol for your IPsec. So that's not something relevant. So my vote would be your option B, that is ESP, encapsulated security payload, that provides confidentiality. Okay, moving to the next question. So during a security assessment of a wireless network, Jim discovers that LEAP. So LEAP is your lightweight extensible authentication protocol. It was a Cisco proprietary. That LEAP is in use on a network using WPA. Okay. So what recommendation should Jim make? Now, this is related to your authentication protocols that we use to for our wireless networks. So wireless have three different technologies. So it started with generation, the very first generation as WEP, that is wireless wired equivalent privacy, which used the pre-shared key between your client and the access point, wireless access point. So that was not secure. In over in order to overcome the weakness of uh, the WEP, we came up with a protocol that is wi- Wi-Fi protected access. All right, or WPA. Right now, WPA came up with the concept of TKIP. TKIP is your temporal key integrity protocol. So in order to overcome the weakness of pre-shared key, we started using a temporary key that was exchanged in order to secure the communication. Okay, well, this leap was a weak protocol, and it was broken with an attack called as asleep, ASLEAP, and that is the reason we do not recommend. And then we have another wireless technology that is called as Wi-Fi protected access 2, or WPA2. Okay, which uses AES. So rest of the two other technologies that I just mentioned, WEP and WPA, they both uses RC4 encryption. The WPA2, it uses AES. And extensible authentication protocol, it is 802.1x. It is an it itself is a framework for authentication, your EAP. It means it is not going to offer you any kind of authentication. Well, it is a standard framework with where you can incorporate any kind of authentication. So your biometric, your any kind of smart card, or any credential authentication you might want to incorporate. But EAP itself doesn't offer any kind of protection. In order to make sure that you protect it, you might want to encapsulate using your TLS tunnel, or we also call it as protected EAP. So my guess would be So I can see there are two protected EAP here, and so option B and D are the narrowed down searches, and my best choice would be option B, because in option B it is saying that you might want to use an alternate protocol like PEEP or EAP TLS and implement WPA2. Why? Because WPA2 is the most secure Wi-Fi technology that we are using right now, and it uses AES. Okay, so my choice would be option B. Yes. Okay, so the next question is, Susan has been asked to recommend whether her organization should use a mandatory access control scheme or a discretionary access control scheme. So your mandatory access control scheme is where it is used in your military organizations, and discretionary access control is something where the access is given based on the discretion of the data owner. Okay, and in mandatory access control scheme, the access is provided based on the security clearance and security label. So someone who has a clearance of top secret, they can access the top secret data, and so on. All right, so if the flexibility and scalability is an important requirement for implementing access control, which scheme should be recommended? So your mandatory access control is definitely not a flexible one. The reason, because it is very stringent and accesses are provided based on the security clearance, security label, and a lot of other things goes beyond it. So where confidentiality is very important. So your Bella Padula model in your domain 3, one of the security models, they follow mandatory access control. So my guess would be to use discretionary access control. Now let's see. So I can see option B and D, they both are using discretionary because they offer the flexibility and scalability, because the access is given based on the discretion of the data owner. So option B states discretionary access control because allowing individual administrators to make choices about the objects they control, provide scalability and flexibility. Okay, this seems a fair choice. And what about option D? Discretionary access control because a central decision process allows quick responses and will provide scalability by reducing the number of decisions required, and flexibility by moving those decisions to a central authority. So a discretionary access control doesn't have a centralized way of managing the access. It is completely based on the discretion of the owners, and it is not at all central. So my guess would be option B as a right choice here. All right. So let's see. Next question. Tony responds to the desk of a user who reports slow system activity. Okay. Upon checking outbound network connections from that system, Tony notices a large amount of social media traffic originating from the system. All right. So the user does not use social media, and when Tony checks the account in question, it contains strange messages that appears to be encrypted. What is the most likely cause of this traffic? Okay, so it seems like that person's system seems to be compromised. I mean, just by looking at the context. Let's see what are the options are. Other users are relaying social media requests through Tony's computer. All right. Tony's computer is a part of botnet. Well, high chances are that it could be compromised and it might be a part of the botnet. Tony is lying about her use of social media. Well, I mean, this is again, it's kind of an, we are trying to question the integrity of the user. Can you just scroll down the question a little bit? I can't see what's option D here. Yep, thank you. So someone else is using Tony's computer when she is not present. Okay, now if I just go back and look at the context of the question, it says, I mean, the first half it says that there's a lot of outbound messages, or the outbound is something which is egress, going from your internal network to the external network connection. So packets are being traveled. So and these are the social media traffic, right? However, when the proper investigation is done, it contains strange messages that seems to be encrypted, which appears to be encrypted. What it looks like, that system has been compromised, it has been infected, and it has been made a part of a botnet. So botnet is a collection of various bots. A bot is said when a system is compromised through any kind of way, like sending out a malicious code and your system is going to be infected. Now, these botnets would be used in order to launch any kind of denial of services attack or a distributed denial of services attack. So that is what it looks like. So to my understanding, it seems that the system is a part of the botnet. Option B should be the right choice. All right, let's see what this question has. Harold's computer has a strong password policy that requires minimum length of 12 characters and the use of both alphanumeric characters and symbols. What technique would be the most effective way for an attacker to compromise the passwords in Harold's organization? Well, it seems Harold is a sensible person who is actually using a great kind of a password complexity. Now, your passwords are the most easiest form of access control or authentication. They are the most uh, like cheap, I would say, or the least expensive. To just to use a better word here, it is the least expensive, and it is easy to implement, and it is most commonly used. However, it is again the weakest form of authentication. But what looks like Harold's company is using a great password complexity. It is using minimum 12 length of 12 characters, which seems to be fairly decent length, and it uses both alphanumeric characters and symbols. So it is kind of complex. So it is going to be definitely difficult for an attacker to compromise these this kind of credentials with the help of brute force attack. So a brute force attack is an attack where an attacker will try to implement all the possible combination that you can see right now in front of your screens or your keyboards. So it is definitely going to be successful, but it is going to take hell lot of time because it is 12 characters with alphanumeric. So probably several thousand of years it's going to take, right? And dictionary attack is something where someone is using a dictionary word in their passwords, and if an attacker is going to run all the dictionary words against it. So because I don't think they would be using any kind of a dictionary attack, and if or dictionary words into the passwords. But even if the user is using a dictionary word, and it is going to take a lot of time because they're going to conduct a brute force with the dictionary words, so it is going to take a lot of time in order to have a successful attack. Rainbow table attack, where the credentials are hashed, and a rainbow table is a list of all the pre-computed hash values, and it is run against the hash value to figure out what exactly is the input, because your hash values cannot be reversed back. It is a one-way mathematics, so you cannot have a reverse of the hash value. So just you perform a rainbow table attack. It is going to be difficult, it because, or probably it doesn't have any kind of context in the question, so I don't think option C is also correct. Well, social engineering attack seems to be the best choice here. Reason being, this is going to include all the various kind of technical and non-technical ways or means to steal someone's credentials. You all must have received any kind of email which says that someone's grandfather left a lot of wealth in and the person is not able to handle that wealth. So, and they just want to provide you with the uh, account numbers, account details, and they're going to transfer half of their wealth, or probably some kind of very similar emails. These are all of the various techniques of the social engineering, which includes complicated methods like your phishing, or even the simpler methods like picking up a phone and calling the person. gaining someone's trust and having a conversation, and then they can uh, get get hold of their credentials. So what is the best way of compromising someone's credentials? Just you can simply go ahead and ask it. That's all. You just have to ask for it. So I think option D should be the best choice here. All right.
So these were for tonight. It was
Okay.
fun to
That is
have
all.
you with us, and the most important things to we learn from Prashant again. We need to emphasize: don't share your password, bank account,
Right.
private stuffs to others.
Right.
And this is kind of phishing attack or social engineering attack that basically trap us to feed the cyber attackers. So instead of
Yep.
blaming them, we must educate
Right.
ourselves so that we can
Absolutely.
protect us and our families from outsiders.
Yes.
So thank you,
Yes.
Prashant. Hope to see you in near future with more
Sure. It was
ideas
a
or
great.
more wisdom.
It was a
I
great
hope.
honor being in here.
Thank you for I think the people, all the technical guys who are appearing for this exam, they must be enjoyed this and hope we'll able to make sessions more in near future.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And everyone who's watching, I'm just a ping away. You might want to connect me over the LinkedIn or Facebook. I will
Right.
be more than happy to help you out.
Exactly. And his book, The Memory Place, you can I can give you the download link in the today's session comment box. You can download it. If, whoever the approaching for this exam, it is a must read for them. I bet on that it won't be wasted. You will get the reward in the exam like me, and many thousands like me. Everybody people are passing with, and they are showing their gratitude to Prashant. I saw him, and he is so kind enough. Actually, uh, one thing he already mentioned that you just need to try to reach people
Right.
whenever you need your help. If there are very good people are there. Mr. Prashant is one of the example. The Luke is another fantastic guy. We need to take it. And uh, I have a chance to make a live with Luke, although he is not willing to come up before the camera, but
Okay.
it may be some kind of audio like interaction.
Awesome.
But maybe
Awesome.
very soon it is going to happen. So, Prashant, thank you. And
Thank
uh,
you.
warm night, good night. You have a weekend, I
Good
think,
night.
tomorrow. So
Yep.
take rest. See you
Thank you
soon
so
again.
much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye bye.